Most communication problems aren't about what's being said, they're about what's underneath what's being said or what's left unsaid. Your core motivation is always at play in your relationship, even when you don't realize it. So let's talk about how it shows up, how it holds you back, and what to do instead. My name is Tammy, and welcome to the Full Weight of Joy podcast. I'm so excited you're here. We're in a series of conflict management in per se. We're going to talk about different ways. And so one of the things I wanted to start with is the fact that we all want to be seen, we all want to be heard, we all want to be understood. But actually, most of us aren't communicating. We're performing, protecting, and projecting based on our inner wiring. And so today I wanted to just give you some three ways that your core motivation may be sabotaging or strengthening your relationship without you realizing it. And then once you're aware of it, once we're aware, we bring things to light, then we're able to make adjustments. We're able to respond instead of react. We're able to actually live and create relationships based on what truth is and what we want to portray and who we truly are at our core versus what we are protecting, projecting, and performing for. And so let's get after it. Okay, so the first way that we um, that our core motivations are at play here is our we filter truth through fear. So you're not avoiding truth. You're editing to protect your ego. So your tone, the level of honesty are shaped by your internal fear. So this may show up as in you may soften it, which leads to feeling resentful because you did not say what you meant. This is one thing that happens to me a lot. It's like try to say something that makes others feel that others that makes it palatable for others. And yet, because I didn't get what I needed out, I feel resentful for it. You also may ask instead of asserts, so you feel unseen. So instead of telling someone how it is, you maybe ask a question, or you filter it through it, trying to see how is the person in front of you going to receive it, and so then they don't see you at your core. And then also another example is you might hide preferences and then feel overlooked. And so it's so important that we understand what the fear is behind it, behind our ego, behind our motivations. And so what are you not saying because you don't want to rock the boat? As you're looking at, how do I filter truth through fear? Because we're all doing it in different ways. It just looks different. Whether you feel resentful, unseen, overlooked, whether you feel you say things more forceful and you're seen as harsh instead of the kindness that you felt or that you wanted to portray, or the compassion you wanted to portray. So there's ways, but we always filter through fear. But we don't have to stop there. So another way that our core motivations may be um, sabotaging us is we listen to validate a story, not understand a person. So you think that you're listening, but really you're looking for evidence that supports your fears. Now, and I'm going to say fears. I'm going to say also another way at core avoidances, your motivations, your like what you are trying to protect from within yourself. Like that's what I'm talking about here. It's not necessarily like afraid of snakes, and so I'm trying to support that. It's more of how do I protect my identity, my ego, my the being that I have, and with this, it's vulnerability and compassion and empathy. How do I protect? And this is typically taught or caught before the age of 5. So these are those things that naturally happen, and we've been rewarded for them, as well as we've been, they've kept us safe, which is why they've built so much. They're so deep in our psyche, and so. You think you're listening, but you're really looking for evidence that support your fears. So we filter what others say based on the identity we're trying to protect. So we listen to comment, we listen to interject, we listen to validate how we're feeling, not to understand what's happening in the person in front of us. And so, examples that this may be, you may be listening to meet someone's needs, but or listen for needs to be met, and then you feel rejected if it's not. Or if it's not needed, say you know what someone needs, but they don't want the help, so you feel rejected because you're like, but I want to help you, And so here you're not really understanding what they're saying. You're trying to solve the problem for them that they didn't want solved, and so you feel rejected. Another example is you filter everything through success or failure, and so you're listening to them, and you're basing it everything that you hear around whether it's a success story or a failure, and it may be linked back to, am I a success or a failure based on what this person is saying? How will they see me? And so this is another reason why you're listening to interject and to prove that you're successful, or to avoid that to look like a failure. When really we know that success and failure are not opposites here, but it still feels very much like they are. And then there's another way of, you hear a disagreement as an attack. So you hear someone is um, criticizing, giving feedback, and immediately, because you are on, you're looking for evidence to support your fear of, like, I'm not in control, I'm not in charge, or I didn't do it right. You hear a disagreement, which may be something simple and maybe just maybe an understanding, but you hear it as an attack. And so when you respond, you actually are reacting in a way that comes from a place of fear versus understanding, when the person it may not have been about you in the whole, or maybe they like, it's not about you in the first place, or you may not have understood what they're, because it may have been a perspective shift, or it may be a misunderstanding. But because you are looking for evidence through the story, and whatever we focus on grows. What you are trying to validate, your brain will validate. And so this is why this is actually holding back a lot of your relationships, because it stops you from hearing the person, and it's protecting you versus understanding in the situation. And so this happens way more than we think. And so one of the questions you can ask yourself here is, when is the last time you paused to ask, what is the person in front of me really trying to say? And what are they trying to say beyond my reaction? What if I didn't have to respond or react to it? What if I truly wanted to hear them? What are they really trying to say? And if you make it, step it out so it's not about you, and you can see that this is a very personal, you take it personally. And we all know people who've done that, and maybe that's ourselves too, is that when we remove that and really sit and listen to the person in front of us, our defenses can go down, and we don't see it as a attack. We don't see it as being rejected. We don't see it as success or failure. We see it as information. And so that's really what we want to get to in this moment. And then, because when you filter it through, okay, this is data, this is information, and then you're like, okay, how do I want to respond to this? Instead of our knee-jerk reactions, it changes the way that people interact with us. It's the way they talk to us. It changes the way we are perceived, and we can actually be seen in a deeper way when we remove some of our defenses. And so the third way here is, we avoid hard conversations that would set us free. What you're avoiding isn't a conversation, it's the feeling underneath it. And let me tell you, these hard conversations really don't have to be that hard, when you realize, for first of all, emotions last about like less than 90 seconds. Like, you can start to finish. So if you can get uncomfortable for 90 seconds and feel the feeling that's underneath these conversations, when you the when you feel it and you're in it in the moment, the conversations they don't have to linger, because a lot of times we hold them, and then it's a lot harder to have the conversations the longer we go. I have I well, not to tell too much of the story, but this is part of the thing that so there's a situation where someone was talking about me to my daughter, and this is a person who she valued, and and she never saw them in a negative light. And though I've had my issues with this person, it's their family adjacent, so it's people that I've known, and it really hurt her feelings. And I was trying to figure out how to handle this, because it's a hard conversation. First of all, I know the person I will talk to will get defensive and deny it, and I'm like, well, like, I need to protect my daughter in this moment. And all I would have talked about is, hey, please, it hurts her feelings. And I would never talk about bad about you to her. Please don't talk bad about me to her. Like, this is not a place for a 15-year-old. She should not be in this conversation. You have something to say? Tell me. Well, I waited and I waited and I waited to have the conversation, to the point that now it's it's harder to have it because most likely they don't even remember doing it. And it's really that feeling because I didn't want, like, how are they going to attack me? What else are they going to say? How are they going to be defensive? Like, and it's that feeling, that discomfort that I felt that stopped me from doing it. Also, it's one of those questions. And reason why I decided not to have it is, what would it have solved? I talked to her, hurt people hurt people. I talked to her and told her, like, it's their perspective. They've chosen not to get to know me. And so it's from the outside looking in. And so I talked her through in that way, and having that hard conversation and letting her know that people let us down when they're with their words too, and to not take it personally, and know that I appreciate that she came to my defense. But also, there's a lot of people who think a lot of things about a lot of people, doesn't make it right. And so if I would have had this conversation back to our, let's steer the ship back where we were going. If I would have had the conversation earlier, it would have been a lot easier. But it's that, okay, how would they have reacted? Would it make any difference, or would it make a bigger barrier between us and make it even more difficult? And so there's evidence of reason why I didn't have the conversation, but the longer I waited, the harder it would have been. And so motivation wants to keep us safe and in control and emotionally distant. What you're avoiding isn't the conversation, it's the feeling underneath. And so when we understand, okay, I may feel some discomfort, I may feel threatened, I may feel sad, or they may feel this, it's we can decide if it's worth it or not. Let's say in the business worlds, like, you may have to um, have a hard conversation with someone and let them know they're not performing you know, at the standards you would like, or maybe they aren't getting along with somebody. And you have to have a conversation about how their reactions are. And the key is here is, like number two, we remove the emotion and understand the emotion lasts 90 seconds, and we look to see. Um, what is the information here? What's the data? But here's some examples of how this may show up. Like, you may fear being too much, and so you stay vague, which that also, you avoid the heart of the conversation when you're vague, because the person you're having it with may not even understand what's going on. You keep it intellectual, so you avoid vulnerability. So at that point, you're protecting your feelings so much that you remove them, and so now it's keeping it intellectual. But we connect through emotions, we connect through empathy, and through compassion, and when we bring it to the conversation, it deepens it. This is a way of protecting yourself, is by just removing feelings altogether. And it also avoids discomfort by staying at the surface level. So, like, right above what really needs to be said. And so when we want that freedom, it's really what needs to be said that sets us free. So here's the question you can ask yourself is, what hard conversation could you have this week that might actually bring freedom, not fear? When you understand, okay, what are the emotions that I'm harboring, that I am holding on to, or that that may show up during this conversation, and allow yourself to feel them and be like, okay, that wasn't that bad, I can have this conversation. Also, if you put all three of these together, if you really listen to understand the person, and ask questions and ask, what's going on, if you understand your fear filter. And so you put them all together. Like, here's three things we can filter: how you filter through fear. So ask yourself these questions. Um, how do I do it? In what ways is fear? What fear is controlling my filter? So that's L, is listen. How you listen to confirm your identity. So am I listening to understand the person, or am I listening to protect and I'm going to say ego identity, protect my vulnerability? Or am I and then avoid. How do you avoid the conversations that could set you free? So filter, listen, avoid. When you ask yourself these three questions, it gives you a like clarity, and allows you to self-assess even in the moment. But a lot of these hard conversations, these conflicts, we actually, most of them, we can put off and say, you know what? I need a moment to think about this before we have this conversation. And then you can go through and you say, okay, what is my fear in this? How am I protecting my ego? Um, how am I, what is the story that I'm trying to validate? And what could I do to switch it to understand the person in front of me? And then the next one is, um, you know, how would having this conversation set me free and set our and bring some freedom to the relationship? And this isn't just in like business or, I mean, even with parenting, with friendships, with definitely spousal relationships and partnerships and things, because we want to protect ourselves. We want to be seen in the best light. We want to protect our fears and our vulnerability. But a lot of times those blocks, those barriers that we put up are actually the exact things that are stopping us from having that deep connection that we long for, the being seen and the being heard and the being understood. So these three things, is it worth getting uncomfortable for a moment and analyzing and assessing yourself in the moment to be seen, to be heard, to be understood? And I think it is. And I know that when I take a step back before I have a conversation and I think things through, and you don't need to intellectualize everything. Like again, you don't want to keep it intellectual, but also ask yourself, and this is where even the different triads come in, where it's like you're in which I don't want to get onto this subject. This is a whole nother podcast, but we're talking about, okay, what is my gut saying? What is my heart saying? What is my head saying? We can bring this, and this is why the Enneagram itself is such a valuable tool to self-understanding and self-mastery. This is when we start to look at ourselves and ask, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I protecting myself in this moment? What am I protecting myself from? We can then shift our perspective and we can let down some of our defenses and really have the conversation and have the relationships that we're looking for. So if you've been filtering, you've been avoiding or performing in your relationships, or if there's something you've just been, I would say like you're just slightly under what you really want to say, it's time to get honest with yourself and with the people in front of you, especially those that you love the most, especially those you work with the most, especially, your boss as well. Like we don't have to fear this. And so the first step is go and take the purpose map quiz, understand what is really driving your inner voice. And then you can, connect with me. Let's talk about, well, I have an easy tool to discover what this core fear is and which is, how are these three stopping you from going deeper in your relationships? It's not about protecting ourselves. Because I know you're like, I want to be fully me. I want to be seen. I want to be heard. But if we don't step back and we don't look at what we're protecting, we'll never be able to set down the armor. We'll never be able to be fully us because we won't know what we're hiding, what we're protecting in the first place. And so if you're ready and you want to, well, you're ready to set down the armor. You're ready to have deeper relationships. You're ready to, even if you are, whether you're a leader and you want to connect more with the people you're leading, or if you have a boss that you want to connect with and or you want more responsibility, or if you want to start something of your own, if you want to dive into entrepreneurship, really this idea of this self leadership, this self mastery is what changes everything. It is the secret sauce that allows you to really live the life that God's called you to live and be who the world needs you, that needs you to be. And so, what's stopping you from really being you? What is the fear behind your actions? And it's not anything to be feel guilty about because we all do it. It's for protection. We've talked about our brain, our like amphibious, I think is that a word? Amphibious, our amphibian, our primal brain who keeps us safe, and how safety and success are opposites. And so when we're feeling safe, that's when we're driven in reactions and we're driven by protections and we're filtering. When we are what success, and again, it doesn't mean, we get to define what success looks like, but success truly is stepping into who you're called to be and being fully alive in you. And so if you're ready to dive in and you want to know, okay, like, yeah, I resonate with these three things. Tell me what to do about it. Like, take the purpose map quiz, connect with me, DM me on LinkedIn or Instagram, and let's chat about what's possible. It's a lot easier than you think. We avoid some of this deep work because we're afraid of what it's going to uncover. But what if it uncovers freedom? What if it unlocks a whole nother level of you that you've been craving for, that just been waiting to come out? What if this is the moment that you can, like, you understand why you've been through what you've been through, and you see why God made you, why you're wired this certain way, and it can unlock that level of freedom for you. All right, friend, if you know of someone who is ready to unlock this, or share this podcast with them and leave me a rate and review. It's so important for, we know how important reviews are. We know that I know I go when I'm looking at products and looking at working with someone, I go and look at their reviews, not only their good ones, but I also look at their like 3 star as well, just to see what is the normal. But it's so important. And so if you could leave me a 5 star rate and review, I would be so appreciative. And well, it just helps the algorithm tell other people about this podcast. It also helps me see what's resonating. If you have an idea, if you have a question, I want to bring back the Hey Tammys, because I've been getting some more questions of like, what is this? And that's where this series has actually come from, because I got a couple questions about how do we handle conflict management. So I was like, well, great, I will, because it's not just a one and done question. It's really allowing us to step back and see, okay, what is the conflict and what are we managing in the first place? And the first step is to managing ourselves, is to understanding the why we do what we do. And this is the first step in it. So, with that, friend, I can't wait to see you next week. And well, if you haven't joined my masterclass, show link in the show notes. If you haven't taken the Purpose Map quiz, tammymariecoaching.com/quiz, take that, and then, or just be bold and message me on Instagram or LinkedIn, and let's just have let's just chat. Let's just see what's possible for you, and see what God's put on your heart to go after. All right, with that, choose joy until joy chooses you, and I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.